Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Lethal Weapon as well as the latest episode of Bull. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include the time when I start to talk about each of the respective shows. So for example, if you want to hear what I had to say about this week's episode of Lethal Weapon, you just get to what I had to say about this week's episode of Bull. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of Lethal Weapon. Another great episode. I love that this episode we have Leo. We're getting double the Leo this season, so that's awesome. I wasn't expecting it. I thought I was like, well, we got Leo once last season. We'll probably get Leo just once this season too, since he was already in one episode. I was like, oh, that was cool. But it's like, Leo's back. Did not expect that, so that was pretty cool. I love Leo. I love him because he's terrible, because even Roger got on in this episode. It's like, you're literally at a funeral and you're trying to be opportunistic. You know, you're up here handing out business cards and everything. Do you have no shame? And I mean, to be fair, Roger was kind of doing the same thing. You know, it's almost a little hypocritical to a certain extent, but he wasn't as bad as Leo was in this particular episode. But nevertheless, this episode deals with a guy named Gene that Trish knows, that basically he ends up dying because it turns out, because he's a lawyer himself. I forgot exactly what his position was. I don't know I think he was maybe he was like a DA himself, essentially, but he's in that position where it's like, oh, I'm gonna rise up the political food chain, and it's like essentially he's running to be mayor, but he ends up getting blown up, which sucks because, you know, Trish was there, and it's like, this is also her friend. Like, this is the first time something big like that has, you know, happened to her in this show. I mean, I'd say big. I mean, a lot of stuff has happened throughout the course of the series to the Murtaugh family, just as well as her house and everything. But this is like the first time like she's ever kind of felt that personally and ended up getting like losing someone that she knows, and to see them like that. And it kind of breaks her heart a little, because Trisha's like, no, I'm gonna stay here because I need help, because it's like, you know, eyewitnesses, their details are a little fuzzy later on, and it's like she's pushing through her pain to be helpful. And it's like, that just shows you how much of a badass Trish is, because it's just like, no, I know I need to be helpful, and as a lawyer, I know how these type of things work. So, but I also love that whole situation of like, because like, I love how like they're far enough away, I don't think the explosion would really affect them. But the moment the car explodes, you have Leo jumping on top of her, and she's like, okay, you can get off of me, Leo. He's like, no, this is just for your protection. And he admits it later on, and he's like, yeah, okay, so I was kind of on top of your wife a little bit. And then Roger's like, excuse me? And Leo's like, no, he's acting a little abrasive, and he's like, well, you were kind of on top of his wife. It's like, it was a protective maneuver. It's like, why did you say anything in the first place? Roger wouldn't have known that. You know, it's such a trivial thing. And then later on, it's like, oh, it's not what it looks like. It looks like you're sneaking around behind my back with my wife. Okay, it's kind of what it looks like. But I also appreciate about this episode too, is the fact is that we do have Trish and Leo like actually working together. Like, when the time comes, Leo can be competent. You know, he actually can be helpful. Which is, I feel so bad having said that. But I love the fact is that that they work together in the episode, especially because at the beginning it's like, Leo's like, oh yeah, Trish, you know, we were you know, my former partner, Trish, you know, because he tried to hook her up with a job and everything. She's like, we never worked together. He's like, God, what was the word? He associate, and she's kind of like, no, it's like, which is kind of sad, because that means she never did take that job, I don't think. Because remember, he put her like face on those ads for them together, saying that they were working together, but she was kind of upset they kind of did that behind her back without her permission. But like, it's kind of sad. I was kind of hoping that meant that they might have worked together, but it's like, I guess I should have expected them not to. But nevertheless, it seemed that basically this all stems back to a lady that disappeared a couple years back, because the main focus of this episode is a councilman who's trying to run for mayor as well. And it seems like Gene was investigating him because there's a lady that went missing kind of in the DA's office around the time. I think the councilman was there, and then it turns out like he quote unquote accidentally killed her. They never really went too far into it, interestingly enough, like the main reason for doing it, but I guess it was the whole fact of the affair situation. Also, easily one of my favorite moments is Leo, like, Trish and Roger just talking and everything, and they hear tick, tick. They go to the window, and it's him throwing rocks. They're like, Leo, what the hell are you doing? He's like, shh. And then Harper wakes up. He says, oh, well, look what you did. Harper's awake now. It's like, I love how you're talking like it's Roger's fault. That his baby woke up. I love that you're talking almost like Harper's yours. Like, oh my God, look what you did. Now we're going to have to put the baby back to sleep. I love that. And then just like, well, why are you here at the window? Why didn't you ring the doorbell? It's like, what are you talking about? Because it's stupid early in the morning. Why would I do that? It's like, just get to the front door. Also, when he was like, oh, I forgot. He was like, Captain Avery, I'm going to sue you for, what was it? It was some kind of like sexual distress or something like that, and physical damage and like sexual stress. It was something weird like that. Avery's just like, out, and he's like, you have to try. It's like, you really don't, Leo. You don't have to use every opportunity as an opportunity. Interesting enough, one thing, you had the dude who plays Gene. I cannot remember his character's name. I think the actor's name is C.S. Lee, but it's the actor from Dexter. It's kind of one of the best things that I know him from, but I was like, I forgot what his character's name is because it's been such a long time since I've seen Dexter. And it's also the actor who plays Mike in this episode, the kind of fixer, like, quote unquote, private investigator. But him, that's, what was his name? Wasn't his name Cho from The Mentalist? I don't remember. Once again, it's been a while since I've seen The Mentalist. Very good shows, by the way, too, especially if you're looking for something along the crime drama. See, especially like kind of similar to Lethal Weapon, but in a more like, a different feel to it. I highly recommend The Mentalist, and obviously, like, if you're familiar with Dexter, I highly recommend that too. But nevertheless, because I like what this episode did, like, once again, that continuation of that storyline about Riggs and his dad. And what I liked is that they added Miranda to that whole situation. So I also appreciate that too, that it is like, I mean, obviously she's never going to be completely removed from the storyline, but even now, like, her story kind of still intertwines with this one. I mean, obviously she will always be a big part of, Riggs' story, his life, So basically it comes down to the fact is that they're talking and stuff at the beginning. It's like, well, obviously Miranda didn't know about her dad, Ronnie, and like kind of the cartel stuff that he got mixed up in and everything. But they're just like, oh yeah, your dad is such a good guy. And then she asks Riggs about his dad, and he's like, tells his story. But then I think it was like, she ends up pointing out the fact is that he's referencing like was it a Sylvester Stallone movie? I think she was saying he was referencing. And she's like, oh no, tell me the truth. And just like, okay, my dad died, And he was saying like, okay, just promise me you won't lie to me again. And throughout the story, Riggs ends up finding out because he ends up crossing paths with Ronnie again because Grant was, talking to him. And it seems like it was connected to the case and everything. This particular case with the old councilman situation. But it seems that Riggs ends up finding out that Mike dude, that fixer or PI, he was actually hired by Miranda because Miranda had a feeling Riggs wasn't telling her everything. We never really found out what exactly it was, but I guess it's just because his family life was something he was super cagey and like never really talked about. Because even at the beginning, she's like, "You never talk about your dad," and it's like, well, we know that. It's kind of like, well, kind of know why he never did, but it seems like Miranda found out, and then like, and it was like, oh, Mike is such a piece of crap because he starts twisting it against Riggs and everything. He's like, oh yeah, well, with your father's situation and everything, it's like, ooh, yeah, she sadly had to find out, this way about kind of your dark past and everything. And then like Riggs slams his head against the table, and Roger's like, all right, come on, and they're walking away. And then he opens his big mouth, and it's like, why do bad guys do that? You're so stupid. The last person in the world you want to piss off, especially when it comes to stuff about Miranda, is Riggs. People are so stupid about that. You do not piss off a man who is like suffering in such heavy grief. You just don't. And it basically makes a comment like, oh yeah, like, it was only sooner or later, it's sad that Miranda she would have sooner or later got, she sooner or later got caught up in the whole, his dark past, essentially. Kind of almost alluding, it's like, oh, because of your dad and his, like, neo-Nazi connections and stuff like that, like, Miranda died. Really, like, it was her dad's connections that ended up ultimately getting her killed. But I think that still it hit multiple nerves because, and it's something Riggs talks about later on in the episode. The fact of the matter is, it upsets him because he never told her. She gave him opportunity. She kind of like hinted and kind of threw it out there, and she was hoping that he'd bite, but he never, because at one point she was like, "Oh, what about your dad?" And the moment he was like, "Oh, what about him?" I was like, I was like I was worried about, because oh, is that her kind of catching him in a lie? Because I was like, oh, did he is he about to accidentally change up his story? Because did he forget the lie he told her? And the sad thing about lies, once you tell one, you have to keep up with it. So I was like, oh, did he like slip up and kind of admit, like, yeah, well, my dad, kind of slip up and admit that his dad was still alive? But it's like, no, that's what I was kind of worried about. But it seems like that's just not the case. It's like, oh, do you want to say anything nice about your dad at our wedding or anything like that? I wonder at that point in time how much she knew at that time. Because no matter what the case may be, for her, it didn't matter ultimately. And it's something that Ronnie kind of gets to later on. Is like, it's not something that ever bothered Miranda. Like what bothered her the most is the fact that he lied about it. Like the foundation of the relationship. Like, it's not something he needed to lie about. But even Roger later on is like, no, I get it. You were just trying to protect her. And ultimately she knows that too. And it's like, but like, that's what I'm curious about. Like, I feel like the moment you find out about Riggs' dad, you find out everything. I feel like you probably start off with present day, like where he is, and to find out, oh, he's in prison, oh wow, he's this and that. Then you also find out about their past, him and Jake, that whole situation regarding his dad. And it's understandable, like that's not something easy to deal with. Like that's not something easy, that's not something you want to share, because we're only just finding out about it now. Roger's just finding out about it now. But it's that situation of like, well, this is the person that you love, you're supposed to share with them the good and the bad, especially stuff like that. But it's like, it's like he, and like I said, what Roger says, like he's trying to protect her from his darkness. It's like, this is my life. I don't want her to get caught up in all of that, And I wonder in some shape or form, like, I mean, that's already been dealt with the whole Flores situation. But to me, I appreciate, it seems like they're hinting at like, well, I mean, they're throwing it out there like, oh yeah, it could have easily just been your past that got her killed instead of her dad's connections. But it's like, well, the fact of the matter is, could that be them kind of alluding to maybe there is some kind of connection between the cartel situation and Riggs' dad's situation? Like maybe there might be some overlap there, that there might be a connection that Riggs had no idea was a thing. I mean, like I said, that could be the case. Maybe that's something, as the series has progressed, it's like, oh, something like Riggs ends up learning more about. We'll just kind of have to wait and see if that turns out to be the case. But it just brings up the bad memory for him. It's like, hey, I didn't tell her. And it's something he talks to Cahill about, because he's like, he's mad because it's like, not really mad, but sad because he wished he had told her, because at least that way he'd have the opportunity to apologize. But she knew the entire time. She never said anything. She admitted, like, at the wedding day, like, she had cold feet, but then she remembered, she's like, I thought to myself, I can't imagine my life without you. And it's like, dude. So it does beg the question, like, I also, like I said, because that brings up an interesting thing in my opinion, because it means like maybe there's definitely more to Miranda's story that maybe there are things that, this is one secret that she kept for Riggs. I mean, the truth be told is like there might be more that we end up finding out about her as the season progresses. There might be more to be like, oh, like she actually knew a lot more than she let on. And it's something I think that Ronnie kind of gets to in this episode. He's kind of like, because he wasn't going to judge Riggs, because it's like, yeah, he had his old cartel situation, so it's like he knows shame, so he's not going to like get on Riggs about it. He wasn't going to like, oh, you're not good enough for my daughter because of that situation, so maybe on some level he always felt a deeper connection to Riggs for that particular reason. And it's kind of sad because they say that basically at the end of the episode, it's like, oh yeah, Ronnie, he died from complications from his surgery. And Riggs, like, throughout the entire episode is kind of like, no, we're not family. Stop treating me like I'm your son. But the moment it's like, oh, were you family? And then Riggs is like, yeah. Because no matter how much their situation was messed up, the fact of the matter is, Ronnie made a mistake, but that was his daughter. He loved her. He did love Riggs like a son, too. Especially considering his dad's situation. Ronnie, flaws and all, still much better man than his own old man, which immediately makes me think, I got this feeling, but it just kind of interests me. It's like, oh, that character's just gone. But I guess it's meant to be that situation of kind of similar to Riggs, like Ronnie never got the chance to say sorry, like he never got to apologize to Miranda for all the stuff that he was mixed up in. So, but now, like, the only other person that Riggs could consider family is going now to. It's one of those situations of, because of everything, you never, like, if it wasn't for these circumstances, he would have never gone to visit or talk to Ronnie at all, you know? So, like, the last tie of family is gone now. But there was a part of my brain that's immediately like, oh, that's sad. But then I'm like, but there might be a possibility he faked his death. That I got that inkling, but it probably won't be the case. He might really just be legitimately gone. It's just that fact of like, well, that, you know, just when things were kind of getting slightly better, you know, like Riggs is dealing with everything, and now it's like, oh wow, like that last part of his family is gone. Especially because like, as that whole situation was going down in the episode when the bad guys caught Riggs and started basically hanging him, his wedding day with Miranda started flashing before his eyes. So ultimately, we'll see about that situation. Maybe there's more to it. Maybe there's not. I don't know. It might just simply be the fact is he's gone, or maybe he faked his death, or whoever he still has connection to helped him fake his death, because it's like, well, the fact of the matter is maybe there'll still be people after him. You know, stuff like that. I'm wondering. Because I'm curious, like, how much Riggs' dad knows, too, because of his connections and everything. What he's been able to do so far in the show makes me wonder, like, he probably knows a lot more about Miranda than Riggs will probably be comfortable him knowing, you know? So, I mean, so far the conversation hasn't come up because Riggs hasn't really sat down and listened to him and everything. So we're just going to have to wait and see about all that. Also, final notes, I also appreciate that aspect of this episode too, about the whole like Roger potentially becoming a captain and him trying to act more captainly, and it's like Riggs doesn't respect his authority. It's just like, oh, that's funny, buddy. I'll see you in the car. No one really showing him respect because he's trying too hard to act like, you know, trying to fit that position. Like, oh, I should be like, but it's like, no, like kind of, it got him too much in his own head about the whole situation. I even love Bailey being like, oh, could I add my name to the list? He's like, oh, Captain Bailey, it kind of has a nice rating to it. I was like, I know, right? And he's like, no, there's only one person on the list. There's only enough room for someone on the list, and that's me. I do appreciate Avery being like, well, the fact of the matter is I might not be stepping down anytime soon like I wanted to, but hey, the fact of the matter is I am proud that there is someone, you know, I'm kind of grooming, and it's going very well to become the next captain. And Roger's like, oh. And then legit me back in my mind, I was like, oh, I kind of halfway expected there to be a joke to be like, oh, wait, you thought I was talking about you. It's like, no. I thought insult to injury would be like, actually, it's Bowman. It's like, at least Bailey, it's like, oh, yeah, it makes sense. But it's like, Bowman? Really? Which is kind of mean to shit on Bowman like that. But nevertheless. But like I said, a great episode. Very interested to see what goes down in the next episode. Like I said, I love this developing overarching story about Riggs' dad. And I'm very curious to see what this does. Like I said, I love the fact is that we are going further and further into Riggs' past as the series progresses more and more. Because like I brought that up before, like I think I might have brought it up in season 1, but the fact of the matter is, like, we knew nothing about Riggs' family. All of season 1 was like, no, like, let's focus more on Miranda's side of things, but it's like, we never got, like, a look into Riggs' life, and now it's like, ooh, things weren't all sunshine and rainbows for Riggs, so, like I said, I'm really appreciating that, and I'm very interested to see it all continue going forward, you know, what they have in store for us in the next episode. And now moving on to this week's episode of Bull, a great episode, like downright amazing, kind of a powerful episode. In this episode, we dealt with an old pal of Bull's named Donovan. He's a psychologist. Essentially, one of his patients was a dude named Lex who basically got fired. He has like a lot of issues, you know, PTSD and stuff like that, and just kind of like a lot, kind of emotional issues. And he ended up killing 2 people at the place he worked at because he got fired, and then killed himself. And then what's so interesting, immediately the episode is kind of like, it's one of those situations, it's like, it's a very gray area situation. I mean, in fact, I think that's actually the name of the episode, which is very perfect name considered, because it's that situation of like, you understand that therapist's line of thinking of like, legally obligated to say anything to the police about certain people's feelings and the way they're acting. Because that's the thing, like, it's the whole process between what is someone simply thinking about something and venting about it to them actually doing it, which is actually kind of scary that basically a therapist isn't like needs to, there's like 3 key components to understanding, like, whether they like the potential, like the more real the potential is, for them to act upon it. So it's just interesting to me. And because it's always like, especially when I watch a lot of crime dramas, it always that thing like, oh, always this doctor patient, like, confidentiality is like, bump that, it's like this person did something. It's like, tell the cops something. It's that frustrating thing. But in this particular case, it's like, it leaves you with that sour note. It's that whole like aspect of that gray area. It's like, well, legally he wasn't in the wrong and everything. It's like, oh man, but it's at the same time, it's like you understand where the wives are coming from that are suing them, because it's like, well, now their husbands are dead, and it's like the guy who committed it isn't alive anymore because he killed himself. So it's now up to, they need someone to take their anger out on, like their grief, And I was like, man, that's just a hard, like, situation. And then things got even more complicated, because it's like, well, Annabelle is actually the wife of one of the widows. She actually recommended Lex to Donovan simply because her husband didn't want to let Lex go, but knew he would have to fire him because Lex has issues. But it's like, and she recommended him because he was her therapist at one point in time. And then like his body language, at first the way he was doing everything, kind of mimicking her, I was like, oh my god, he manipulated her through their therapy session. Like, because even Bull was looking at like, what the hell is that? What? So I was thinking like, oh man, he got inside of her head, started manipulating her. Like, she doesn't realize that she's under his control. Like, he in a sense hypnotized her to an extent. That's what I thought might have been. I was like, but it turns out it's even worse than that. We end up finding out this piece of crap orchestrated everything. He didn't actually pull the trigger himself, but he put the gun in Lex's hand, told him exactly what to do. He pushed him to this. Because in his mind, it's like, well, me and Annabelle, obviously there's something between us. She had feelings for me, and I had feelings for her. We're each other's little secret. But it's like, oh, Lex came into my life, recommended by Annabelle. It's like, oh, destiny, can you believe it? And he's telling Bull all of this, but Bull can't do anything about it because he's legally obligated, because he's part of the defense team. He legally can't say anything because it would literally be a crime to do it, and it sucks. Because Bull doesn't even tell the team, because it's like, he doesn't want to make things even harder for them. Because it's like, especially Benny, it's like Benny's job will, like, they're legally obligated to give him the best defense that they can, which is always an interesting situation. Like, you could walk away, but it's still that situation of like, even if they don't do it, like, someone else would have to take that job. So Bull was kind of like biting the bullet on the situation. But it's like, because even lawyers on some occasion have to kind of like, I think you can turn it down, but it's still that situation of like, even the most terrible people get represented by lawyers, which you kind of feel like you shouldn't, but that's just that's how the system works. That's the checks and balances to like her judicial system. But it just hurts Bull, because in his ears he's hearing Marissa being like, oh my god, look, he's so good, he's so fantastic. Because even he was hearing that from Chunk, like, oh man, the mock jury loved him. He's saying, he like, the way Benny's grilling him, but he's coming back. Because that's what's so scary about it. He's so calm and collected about it. Because even Bull admits, like, amongst people who understand human nature, understand the human mind, there are none that know it best, as good as Donovan. He's a master at it. And just for Bull, it hits him so hard, because it's like, not only was this person a friend, a colleague, this man is a sociopath. And at first, and I thought the same thing too, because he was like, oh, don't judge her. I was thinking just like Bull. I was like, okay, so Annabelle was behind this too. This whole thing was like some grand manipulation to like get her husband out of the way. But Bull confronted her and just like, no, that's not the case. Everything that Donovan said was all in his head. He has delusions of like, oh, we're going to be together. And it's just like, my God. And the crazy thing is, like, it's so frustrating because Bull wants to get justice because he knows this, but he legally can't do anything. And so, like, I love what they did with this episode with that. Like, it's like, okay, there's that gray area here, and it's like, but there's a double side to that gray area, because it's like, okay, obviously he should have said something, but legally he's not in the wrong here. But then it's like, oh, legally he is in the wrong because he orchestrated everything. But Bull's in that tight spot where he can't legally say anything. But even Bull's like, he gets the team together, with the exception of Benny, because it's like, if there's any blowback from this, they won't suffer the biggest ramifications. There might be some issues. He's even saying criminally, they won't serve any jail time. And Bull's like, if I have to pay any fines, I have to pay some fines. I don't care. We need to do this. Because he's like, can anyone tell me whether this is right or not? Whether if this is really wrong? And then like Chunk is like, no, we all know here that it is the right thing to do. But it's just that crossing that line. But it's like for the right reasons, because this guy is totally nuts. And it's just, I love that dual side to the episode like that because they've never represented anyone that. I mean, they've had people on their team. There was that one time I read that case. I think that was season 1, where the person behind the whole situation was actually part of the defense team. It was like the client, her uncle. He was a lawyer in the situation, but he was the one behind the particular case too. So that's the closest thing. But this is the first time they've ever represented someone that was just truly evil. Yeah, people have made mistakes and stuff like that, but typically the people that they represent are actually good-natured people who have their own issues and stuff like that. But yeah, like I said, the first time they've ever outright represented someone even. Like I said, I love that the show constantly surprises you. You're like, oh, you think it's always going to be like this, but there's always little things here and there changing up the case, the dynamic of the case. Once again, like they nailed it on a jury because combined with Donovan being the sociopath that he is and being very meticulous and pragmatic, because even he's like, oh my god, like the simplicity behind it, but you're just so mad because I'm so pragmatic about it. It's like you're gloating about how good you are at doing what you did, you piece of crap. It's like, what the, you know? And major props to, Annabelle. That was such a mess up thing, having to like be on a dinner date with the man that orchestrated your husband's murder because in some messed up way he did it because it's like, oh, we need to be together. I love you. And it's just like, it's sickening and it's sad. She has to touch him, call him Don, playing to his ego a bit and everything. I was scared because I was thinking in my head, like, either Annabelle was going to be the one to, I thought the episode was going to end with her killing him or something like that, just because, like, she couldn't just, there's a part of her that was just going to, like, snap from it, which she was borderlining, but I thought maybe the other widow would show up and end up killing him or something like that because, like, she ended up finding out everything. And then it turns into a situation of, like, maybe the episode ends like that. Might be one of those bittersweet endings like that, kind of like a Law and Order bittersweet ending. They typically have like depressing endings in a lot of cases. So I thought something like that, but luckily Chunk and Danny were able to get Annabelle out of there in time before she like had to break down. But it's like they taped his confession and everything, and so he ends up getting locked up. Which he threatens. He's like, "Well, I'm gonna prove that you did it, and I'm not stupid. I know that you were behind it." And Bull's like, "Okay, you can try to do that. I mean, you're going to be doing that from behind prison, but it's okay. And you might be able to, even if you did prove it, I will gladly take liable for the fact is that like, oh, I put a sociopath like you in prison, that the world is better off with a bad man like you locked up." And Donovan never really said anything, so it's just kind of cool. It's like, oh yeah, here, don't say I didn't bring you anything, and then bounces. So good ending to that whole situation. I am curious though, like the fact is he kind of got shut down by Bull like that makes it seem like that's not a situation we would be dealing with in the future. It's probably like it's done, but like that sucks because as we've seen it throughout the series, Bull has dealt with people from his past. Yes, things have been a little murky, but overall it's been like I said, been good to a certain extent. Like I said, this is the first time, like, not only was it someone, because this was a close friend, they kind of worked in this field together, like 17 years ago, they shared an office and everything. So it's just, for Bull, it's just on many different levels. On a friend level, it's like, my friend is a piece of crap. On a professional level, it's like, he's like, it's like, we're as, people, because Bull's like, we're meant to help people kind of fix them, make them happier. And he's like, no, that's kind of he's like, oh, that's kind of a load of bull and stuff like that is kind of what, Donovan was kind of, like he said, he's just kind of, the fact is that we as kind of in that psychological field, kind of like get inside of people's head, and it's like, oh, what's so wrong about, us being a little happy? Like, yes, he's like, I helped that guy out because I got him what he wanted. He wanted revenge. And hey, I won. Why should I have to suffer the ramifications of doing something that, yes, I got something out of it, but everyone walked away happy. He got what he wanted and I got what I wanted. Like I said, he's an evil person. Yes, he didn't pull the trigger. What makes it even worse is the fact that he manipulated someone else to do it, someone that was vulnerable, someone that could have just been helped to prevent a tragic situation like this. Because that's also the thing too, and that's one of the reasons why Bull was doing this, because it's like, who's to say he won't do this in the future to someone else? Manipulate someone that he's supposed to help and, make better and manipulate them for his own means. So, like I said, a great episode. Fantastic even. Like I said, I love what they did with this episode. This is kind of easily probably one of my favorite episodes just with that storyline like this. So, like I said, I'm very interested. I'm very interested to see if something like this comes back up again, like this whole storyline where they're like, Donovan will pop up again. But like I said, like the way things are tailored, it seemed like, nah, it's kind of like do what you want to. You ain't going to really be able to do anything, but we'll kind of see, Be very interesting to see more episodes like this going forward into the future. Like I'm sure, it has similarities to past episodes too, but it's just like, I don't know, I feel like this episode was very unique in a sense of like, how everything broke down in this episode. So, I mean, in all honesty, that's all I really had to say. This episode's kind of on a little bit on the shorter side, but that's like I said, I'm very interested to see what goes down in the next episode. So, but really, that's all I want to talk about. So, the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.